Hi, Jen from Woodward Blooms here. Today I'm going to show you how to make these super cute hoop wreaths. They can be perfect for bridesmaids, flower girls, or even for the bride herself. Best part is afterwards these hoop wreaths double as super cute wall decor. Let me show you. So all you have to do afterwards is take this and you could add twine to it. You could put a command strip on the wall or have a wreath hook somewhere, even just a little nail, and your hoop wreath can make the cutest wall decor. Like this, you can also angle it and sort of have a swag on the side. Either way, this option is a really versatile one to invest in. So let me show you how to make it. So first, starting off, we're just going to go over the materials you need to create your hoop wreath. So you're going to need your wood flowers, and you will need a variety of fillers, and of course you'll need your hoop wreath along with a variety of greenery. Here I'm using 2 different types of eucalyptus as well as this Italian ruscus. Okay. So what we're going to do is break apart our silver dollar eucalyptus. So I am using a wire cutter to trim these down to shorter stems that are more manageable. If you like the look of the longer stems, you can leave them that way. If you would like your hoop wreath to have greenery just going in one direction, that might work really well. For this hoop wreath, I'm going to have the greenery going from a center point out, so I need to break this apart. And then what I'm going to do is use a couple pieces and create some bundles with the other gum eucalyptus. Whatever greenery you have, it's sort of the same concept. I'm also going to use some of this paddle wire here. This one's in a long piece, but it also comes on a spool, and you just need a piece that's about 1.5 inches to 2 inches long. Nothing too big. I like to have a few pieces cut and ready to go. You could also use zip ties during this process if you preferred zip ties. There's little mini zip ties that are perfect that come in green and clear. And I'm taking the stems of Italian ruscus, and I'm also going to have those as part of the greenery bundle as well. So what I'm going to do is start with this. Now in the end, I'm going to sort of turn some of the leaves if they're facing in the wrong directions, and I'm just going to layer the greenery together and then take the leaves and move them a little bit around so they wrap in and intertwine with each other. And then I'm going to take the Italian ruscus and do the same thing. So there is an example of just twisting a leaf. Sometimes that works, and sometimes you have to gently pull the leaf off and put it back on. And in real life, the leaves wouldn't all face in a perfect direction either, so don't drive yourself crazy with that. I'm trimming the stems a little bit shorter so that there's not too much excess that I have to cover later, but you do want to make sure you have a little bit of stem in there. The more I layer in this bundle now, the better. You could also stem your flowers and layer them in here. You can also add your fillers in at this point and then just put your flowers on, so you can experiment with which way. I chose to do it this way and then add the fillers later because I wasn't quite sure where my flowers were going to go. But if you have a design and you know where your flowers will be and you want to layer your fillers in beforehand, that's totally fine as well. It's a little bit less wiring and a little bit less gluing. So I'm taking my little piece of paddle wire, or you could take your zip tie here, and what's important is you want to make sure that you don't just go around the very end of the stems, that you also maybe go above a leaf or something that can hook and hold everything, and it won't just pull right out. So I'm wrapping that wire nice and tight around my hoop. And this is just a center point. You're going to have to wire at least a stem or 2. You don't have to necessarily get all of them up higher. What you want to do is make sure you get the greenery out of the way, and then your wire will hide underneath all of that later. And so, same concept, find 1 or 2 stems, and you're going to wrap it right around that hoop. This is going to help hold it in place and make it so that it doesn't move when you're holding it, or flop when it's against a wall. You don't want to wire right on the very end because sometimes you want a little bit of that natural movement of the greenery. And there's no flowers on this, so feel free to just, flop it over, pull it really tight and twist. Now cut off any extra wires or wrap them around more and tuck them in, whatever is easier for you to do. So now I'm just kind of zhuzhing a little bit, turning leaves making sure my wire is wrapped nice and tight. I didn't do the best job of filming that so that you could see, but when you've got this done, feel free to trim anything excess. Now one side is complete, so I'm going to speed the video up just a tiny bit so that you don't have to watch me do the same thing on the other side, but you're going to create that same bundle again, and you are going to attach it on the other side of your wreath. If you wanted to go with greenery all in one direction, then you could actually keep layering your greenery bundles in the same direction and finish off with flowers and a ribbon that's hanging down, just as another option. So got that bundle, we'll trim any excess, and here we go. Let's speed up the other side. So same exact process, got my greenery, putting it all together, twisting my leaves, layering it, and then we are going to attach that with some wire right at that center point. It can get to be a lot there. This is a spot where sometimes a zip tie works really well just because it's a thicker amount now that you have so many stems there, but the wire works just as well. And then the same thing, you're going to want to wire up on that side and just make sure that everything isn't flopping. I probably should, I should have moved that one up just a little bit because later on you'll see that bit has a little bit of the ruscus flopping down. So make sure that you pick yours up and you sort of like how it hangs. And you can always undo a piece of wire and just zhuzh things later as well. Once you have your greenery wired, we are ready to work with our flowers. So what you're going to need for that is your hot glue gun, hot and ready, and your wires. I'm using an 18 gauge, but honestly you could use a lighter gauge, a 22 gauge, so that it actually bends a little bit easier around. So this one happened to already be stemmed. My center flower, I love the big flower in the center, and I go straight down through, and then I'm going to wrap that wire around. Now what you need to be careful to do is not wrap and press the greenery down. You have to kind of move the greenery out of the way as you're wrapping that. Could you just glue it? Probably not, because there's not anything super solid there to glue to, so I prefer to wire it so that it's there and it can move. Now I'm wiring these flowers with more of the 20 or 22 gauge, so it's a lot more flexible. You can see I can just bend that wire. Now you can go in and just get your placement first, figure out how you like your flowers. Here, there's a lot of greenery. You could potentially glue something to a piece of greenery, but again, I prefer to wire so that everything is nice and secure, since these are going to be carried down an aisle and then hanging up on a wall potentially later as well. And watch for those glue strings. I can see that one right in the video. I'll have to go back and get it later. So once you've got these wired, same thing, you're going to wire them right to your wreath. Now this one I'm showing you how you can take your lighter gauge wire and put two pieces in and then actually just kind of go right around your wreath and twist on the back. It's an option that might make it a little bit easier for some people. You could do that on any of the flowers, not just the little ones on the end. So these I'm sliding right in, and then as you see, I'm just going to take that wire on the back, wrap it around where the hoop is, or you can wrap it around another piece of stem that is there, something that's going to hold it in place. You could also have a short wire, put some hot glue, slide it in, and let it harden. That would potentially work as well. So I've got this one on, and then I can still move it. That's why I like the flexibility of the wire. And same thing on this piece. I'm going to send it through and try to wrap it in. I think when I did this one, actually one of the wires didn't wrap as well. I decided here that I didn't like all the stems on the back just kind of being so loose, so I'm going to use this wire to actually hold down those stems a little bit and keep the center stems in place from the greenery as well. And this can be a little bit tricky, might make your fingers hurt, but once they're in place, you're pretty much good to go. If something isn't staying where you want it, this is a chance to use glue and sort of hold things in place. So now I'm going in with, it almost looks like a little hairpin, right over the hoop, right over, I'm pushing the greenery aside and going over just maybe part of the stem, twisting on the back, and again, you can trim any excess, you don't have to leave it hanging. In this case, I have this nice leaf here, and I'm going to trim these, and then I'm also going to add a little bit of hot glue. I'm going to stick that leaf right down, hold it in place for a moment just so it cools, and it's going to help extra secure things and cover the back mechanics as well. There's a lot of greenery here, and you don't have to necessarily use this much, so if you use less, that might not work, and I'll show you another trick for how you can secure things with a leaf or two later as well. So adding the hot glue on this side, holding it down, just making everything nice and secure so that it's good to go when you walk. So now we're going to take these dried fillers, just small pieces of them. They can be difficult to work with, and what's important to realize is you don't have to use one big giant piece. You're really going to want to break this stuff apart. And you can use a piece of wire and some hot glue and some tape. You can wrap, like I'm going to do here, some of the lighter gauge wire around this and hold it in place once you break it apart. And I'm going to add just a little stem to that as well so they have something to grab onto. In this case, I'm actually using that lighter gauge wire, that 20 gauge wire or 22 gauge wire to wrap and then become the stem, so I'll have that extra piece that can just wrap around something. But in all honesty, this dried filler is so light and fluffy, and once you've wrapped the bottom pieces, you can glue it right in as well, which is what I'm going to do with some of my bunny's tails. First I tried wrapping them in, and then I realized it was a lot easier to get them where I wanted when I glued them in place. So the stems are super long. You can trim them to whatever length you need, and in this case I'm trying to make a little bundle that I'm going to put into my wreath. And again, I've got the wire wrapping around all of that, and then I'm going to sort of figure out where I want to put it in my wreath. So play with different areas. You can have it just coming out on the ends. You can sneak it in throughout. If you really want it more incorporated in your wreath, I would add a piece of this in before you add all your flowers. For me, I just kind of liked the idea of it coming out of the ends so it wasn't everywhere. And I'm just sliding it in, and then I'm going to wrap that wire around just like I did with everything else. And then you can zhuzh it, move it around with your greenery. In my case, one of the bunny's tails got really low and I couldn't see it, so I definitely decided that I'm going to break some pieces and just glue them in, because then you're going to be able to see those kind of on the front of the wreath a little bit more and have them be a bit more prominent. So again, don't even worry about scissors with these, just break it apart with your hands. A little dab of hot glue will do you. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So, learned my mistake the first time. I don't want to cut my wire too short, so I've wrapped it around, and I'm going to just slide this right in to the side of my wreath. And usually you can find a spot where it can kind of go in and come out the back side, and then you'll be able to wrap it around any spots. Now, it looks a little messy on the back side. No one really sees that, but I do have some tricks to show you how to cover that up so it doesn't look, you know, like a complete hot mess. Once you've got your pampas or any other fillers wired in and you've finished adding those, then we're going to take a look, see how it hangs, and finish up with the backside. So what I'm going to do is take a few of these extra leaves that I actually had slid off of my greenery earlier, and you know, if you might have a leaf or two that's in the way, I like to just glue those in. So this, I had like a sort of a spot on the top. I just felt like I could see too much of the mechanics, so I glued that leaf right in there. Also another good spot to add some filler. If you want to add even extra fillers here, things that work really great are baby's breath. Grab some fresh. It will dry right out, so you can put it in fresh and let it dry right in the wreath if you want to. And then I love to take these eucalyptus leaves and slide them, or lace them, I should say, right underneath that big main flower, covering up the wires. So you add some of the hot glue down the center and on the sides, and you hold it right down on the flower and the wires and the hoop, just to cover all those mechanics. And you'll see it does a pretty good job of doing that, and then it looks just incorporated into it, so if someone does see your wreath from the back side, it looks good. It also protects the wall from any scratchy wires when you're hanging it up later. So here we have our finished wreath. Check it out, super cute. Have fun creating yours.